to another solo. I wrote out a solo from the great musician Dan Tyminski. He's mostly thought of as a singer and a guitar player, but in the band, the Lonesome River Band, back in the 80s or early 90s, extremely influential band. He played mandolin in that band, and some of his mandolin playing is so great. It channels like Monroe stuff, Monroe bluesy language, but in a way that modernizes it, but never feels. There's no extra. There's no filler. It just feels like he plays what should happen in a really intelligible way. And so I love listening to him, and I also love it as a vehicle for learning where to find some of these sounds. So let's check out this page. It's called "I Can't Get You Off of My Mind." Well, it might be called "Can't Get You Off My Mind." I'm not sure how much punctuation they included. But this is an old Hank Williams song. I wanna share my audio again and play for you this Dan Tyminski kickoff. Great. So I love that solo. There's, I think this solo is actually where I learned some of these ideas. This really key sounds that I found in this solo, and then was like, oh, I love that sound. I can see how it relates to the arpeggio, and now it's part of my bag, and I can use it in any key whenever I'm using this shape. I want to listen to it again, and I want to slow it down. One thing that's hard about this solo is that he's playing it mostly as downstrokes. So getting it up to speed while doing that is hard. So if you want to make it just slightly easier for yourself, you can skip the triplet at the beginning, the very first thing he plays on the pickup measure, and the triplet at the beginning of measure 2. Not having those triplets makes it easier to do. To do it as an alternating thing. The downstroke thing certainly gives it this aggressive driving thing, and that's a beautiful sound. And if you like it, go for it. My hope for this in us examining it is that you get some language out of it, find these sounds, and how to find them, and how to shift for a couple of things, and that doesn't matter to me whether you use the all downstroke aggressive thing. So let's listen to it again. I'll slow it down a little bit. Slow it down even more just one last time. Using the mantra, it's harder to play something until you know what it's supposed to sound like. This song is, of course, a lot more complicated than the Grisman thing we just checked out. So I don't think it would be in our best interest to use the time we have today to try and spend the rest of the time just getting it up to speed. But I want to show you some things that he's doing that are deeply beautiful and really interesting sounds. And they aren't, of course, in a vacuum. They're relative to this root note. In this case, we're in the key of E. And so if I can think of all these sounds relative to this root note again, then I can replicate them anywhere else. So I'm going to play the first, I guess, 4-bar phrase until the downbeat of measure 4. So it would sound like this, more or less. We'll see. Hopefully more. 2, 3, 4, 1. So the first thing that leaps out as a really valuable thing that we need to know is that he wanted to get to this note. And if your first finger's here, of course, we've run out of fingers. We can't go below there. But that's a very, very common move for mandolin players and in this music. It's just very common to have this root note and want to be able to use the third below. So the way he gets to it is a really useful move. So that last measure, if you played the last 4 notes of the last measure on the top line, there's a couple ways you can do it, and I'll show you another one later that Sam Bush did. But in this case, what he's doing is E, the root note, the 5th with his middle finger, the 4th with his first finger, and then the 3rd with his first finger again, and then middle for E. So it goes 1, 2, 1, 1, 2. Maybe we can play. I'm going to play that 4-bar phrase again real slowly, just so that you have something to play along with when you come back and review this. So it's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Now notice that if you think about that Grisman thing, there's the root note, there's the 3rd, there's the 5th. Remember how so often when he played this note, he implied that note right below it, the half step below, the flatted 3rd. Now Dan Tyminski takes it a little further. He's using a bluesier aesthetic in this one. So you can see where instead of going several times, he uses that flatted 3rd. So now we have this language where we've got 1, 2, 3, and 5 up here, but we're also 1, 2, flat 3, 3, 5. So that's an important thing. For those of you, let's see, when you get to measure 4, one important detail on that makes what he's doing possible is that shift I showed you at the end of the top line. So he plays E with his middle finger at the end of that, and then he plays E again. But it's important to shift back to your first finger for that repeat of E. So if I played the last 4 notes at the end of the top line, it would be like that, where I've repeated E first time with the middle finger and the second time with my first finger. So like I said, this pattern is used all over the place by mandolin players everywhere, but it's rarely used without some sort of a shift. We already found one shift downwards. Now, as we keep going on the next 4-bar phrase, he's going to shift up a little bit, and it just illustrates some sounds that we can associate with this. So that's our arpeggio. He's aiming for the root note and the 3rd in this next octave. So let's check out what he plays on measures 4 through maybe 8. So it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Now check out, if you look at the end of measures at the top line and the end of the measure at the end of the second line, it's really the same idea. So it's kind of a really nice demonstration of this movable closed vocabulary. So he's doing the same thing we had done against E. 1, 5, 4, 3, 1. And then he does the same thing against B. And in fact, he shifts back to get that B again with his first finger. You could do it immediately, like that, with the quarter note to give you enough time, or you could do it after the open A, which is what I think he does. They're both good options. So what else is going on in that 4-bar phrase? We've got 2, 3, 4, 1. Oh yes, there's the downbeat. 2, 3, 4. So again, we've gone to he's thinking about a B chord in that measure, which is measure 6. And if this is your root note of the chord you're thinking about, this would be an example of using this same pattern on a different chord in the song that you're in. So here's the root note. So he's really into that language where you slide into the third, and then when you're coming down, you use the flatted third instead of the major third. So if you think about measure 6, it would sound like this: 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. And that's language that's super valuable. So always, if you like that language, again, try and do it in every key just so you can incorporate it. Here's, etc., etc. So that brings us through the first half of this solo. Oh, one last thing. When he shifted up, of course he's using an open E string for a moment, because you can do that in this key. You can't do it in every key. So he's making choices that work in this key. But one thing that is notable is that when he goes up to this, there's double stop in measure 5. You're finding the third and the flatted third up there a couple times. And then the way he gets back to first position is you got your ring finger on this E, the 7th fret, and then he plays it and slides off. That's a very, very common thing to do. I think it's just what people do all the time, whether they're conscious of it or not, but it's making a decision about rhythm that allows them to shift in a way that feels musical. So he left himself some space, and he shifts back to first position. Really common idea, and it's not a cop-out. So the last few lines sound like this. From measure 8, 2, 3, 4, 1. Now, I want to stop there because this sound is cool. You're playing the B and the F sharp, but it's against this root note. And it's kind of this sound because he's sometimes using... It's a pretty strange sound, but I like it. And so if you can envision that this is the root note, or this is the root note, and then play a note a whole step above it, and the note a fifth above it, you have this kind of aggressive bluegrassy sound. So it would sound again... against this note. So it's a pretty interesting sound. I think we should move on. I'm going to play the last 4 measures just so there's an example of it. But if you want to find this song, it's from the Lonesome River Band, and definitely give it a check it out. The last 4 measures... sixths, excuse me, same as he was up here. Cool language. I just want to make sure we get to this last thing that I think is going to be crucial for how you deepen your understanding of this. So I think of this as movable ear training, and the way you can develop your ear is to learn many songs by ear out of this pattern. And I wrote out a few options. So if you skip to this page that's full of just words instead of visuals, and on the top it should say developing your fluency with closed positions. And there's some notes there about this, basically the assignment I was envisioning for you. And then if you look at the halfway down the page, there's a bunch of songs. So the first 4 songs, Long Journey Home, you might also know it as $2 Bill, Things in Life, and Gold and Silver, and Will the Circle Be Unbroken. For each of those 4 songs, I recorded a demo of a simple version of the melody out of a closed position in the key of G. So this would be making it as easy as possible to try and start learning these things by ear. So for those 4 songs, if you put your first finger on the 5th fret of the D string and envision some of this language we've checked out before, you could start by playing East Virginia Blues. In this position, just to acquaint yourself with where those notes are. And once you've done that, try and learn those 4 songs that I recorded a very simple demo of in that position. And those ones that I made a demo of should have no shifting. And then as you go further down the list, I'll Fly Away is very friendly. Early Morning Rain, I'm going to skip that for right now, as well as the Hank Williams song. But as you go deeper down the list, you're going to, if you play every single note, you're going to have to add some notes that you haven't found yet, and that's okay. That's part of how we learn where these sounds are. And there will also be some small shifts. For example, on Take Me Out to the Ball Game and Somewhere Over the Rainbow. Let's look at the next page of this document, this PDF, because just to get you started thinking about this stuff, I wrote out 2 songs, and I wrote them out in a way where we're inviting you or asking you or trying to force you to think about it in terms of scale tones. So instead of, hey, this is a D, okay, now we're going to B, I want you to think of it as, okay, 5, 3, 2, 4, 1. And that, thinking in that way makes it more possible to do these ideas in other keys. This would be one of those situations where perfect pitch might not be an upside, because we're trying to think in relative pitch and think, okay, 1, 6, 5, 7, 1, 2, etc., etc. So I wrote the 2 of these songs out with scale tones, and let's all try and play Early Morning Rain. In just arbitrarily, I'll stay in the key of G. So your first finger's on the 5th fret. In this case, your G major arpeggio is right there. And so it's 1, 3, 5. So we haven't talked about finding the 4th note, but try and find it and see if your ear will guide you to that. It's going to go 2, 3, let's see. It's going to want to be a little slower. 2, 3, 4, 1. How about it's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. There's Rain on the 5th fret. Now we're going to go down to 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. So that was our first line. 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. So, hopefully that makes sense. Note that you can find the fifth up here. You can also find the fifth down here. So, and the same, of course, with the sixth. The seventh is less convenient in the lower octave, but it's there. And for some of those ideas, if it's not intuitive, I wrote out a closed position scale pattern, which you can find on another PDF to show you where you're going to find all these sounds. Maybe the last thing we'll do is, why don't we play "Why Don't You Love Me" and then wrap it up for this week. One last thing. I transcribed a Sam Bush solo on "Last Letter Home," which it's a really beautiful, very clearly stated version of the melody of that song using some of these ideas. He shifts out of it, which could be a downside, but also it shows you how to take this shape and then shift up for another double stop. So let's play "Why Don't You Love Me," and then we'll close it up by listening to this Sam thing, and you can find the transcription. If it's not already up there, it will be up soon. And I've written it out with every note. So the last thing is "Why Don't You Love Me." Let's do it again. We're in the key of G. Again, if you get better at your inversions, and you can hear or know that the melody is the third, then recalling a melody or playing it in a new key becomes more intuitive. So why don't you love me like you used to do? Let's see. Key of G, starting on the 9th fret with your ring finger. It's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. So try and do that with as many songs as possible. I wrote some to get you started, but really any song, if you try and find it out of that position and see where you find the sounds in your head, will deepen your ear training and your intuition about this. So last thing, let's listen to this Sam Bush thing. Yeah, so that's it's a beautiful solo. Again, like everything that we're going to learn in this course, you can put in the time and effort to try and learn it up to speed, and that's fine. Or you could say, oh, I like this sound, and I see that I understand how to find that sound, and I'm going to use it slower, or I'm going to use it in another way, or I'm just going to play this solo slowly. All those are great. Really, my net goal for you is just to be able to find a connection between a sound and then how to play it. And it doesn't matter to me that you get this up to the same speed as Sam. But let's listen to it one more time. I'm going to slow it just down, just ever so slightly. So that's it. Yeah, hope you guys can put this stuff to work in these next couple of weeks and learn a ton of songs and come away with more intuition about how to use all this stuff.